Morning everyone, Ian from DIY Home and Gardening. 12th of October at the allotment doing a load of planting, and that includes planting these, which are Egyptian walking onions. So if I turn the camera around and we can have a look together. So as I say, these are Egyptian walking onions. I first planted them 2 years ago, 2023. Had a few die, or rot I should say, in 2024. So it's taken a little while to bulk my numbers up, but I've gone from having 3 bulbs to however many bulbs that is. So Egyptian walking onions, also called tree onions or top onions, for the reason being that as the bulb grows and matures, it produces a flowering spike on the top, much like a normal garlic would do. And then on the top of that, it then produces these bulbils, which you can see now we're into the October autumn time. They're all starting to sprout. Now what happens is that, as I say, they produce on this tall spike as a small bulb, and then as they gain size and weight, that pulls the whole stem over to the point where it then collapses in the back end of summer. These would naturally fall onto the ground. This time of year they then start sprouting, and so the plant gradually, year on year, moves across the bed, hence the term walking onion. So the bulbs themselves clump up. You can lift them and use them as sort of that amount of the bulb, so well, probably a bit shorter than that, so as a sort of 3-4 inch bulb, a bit like a shallot or mild onion. More importantly and nicer is to use it as just the foliage, so use it like you would do spring onion leaf or just normal onion leaf, and so you got this continuous cropping of leaf out the top. So I've previously grown them in that bed, and I want to do some work over there this season, so I'm going to be planting them into this bed alongside the elephant garlic. So this bed here has been prepared as I always do, so it's just a mixture of the manure underneath, or soil manure mix, and then I've just done a blinding layer over the top just with some fresh compost or bit of compost and some out of the compost bin. You can see that some of the grass is starting to germinate, which is essentially come out of the manure anyway. So just going to give it a quick level over, and then we'll get planting. Okay, so each section of these, whether it's like that or one of these bulbils, wants to be planted out at 15 centimetre spacing and similar sort of depth, much like you normal spacing for garlic. So what I do on the edge of my beds, I always put in screws at 15 centimetre spacing, and you can see that I've done that for when I've done my other garlic as well the other week. Then I've got my trusty piece of wood marked out at 15 centimetre intervals, and that just means that I can literally line it up from screw to screw and place my pieces out nice and simply, like so. Work my way along, get them laid out, and then get them planted. So nothing too scientific about this. Fork or hand, get it down, and you're planting so that the bottom of this bulb 15 centimetres down, backfill, plant it so it's upright, and that's essentially it. Nice and simple. And because these are a perennial bulb, it means that you don't really need to lift them each year. They can stay in the ground. I do tend to lift and move them. Well, I say I am in this instance after a couple of years. One, because I want to reorganise the bed, but also it does mean that you're not going to be building up too much of an issue in terms of pests and diseases. So let's nip across. Yeah, if you're keeping them in the same bed, then just make sure to get some decent nutrients in there each year. And for me, that's putting in manure and top dressing with my homemade compost, because that's going to really help to improve your ground and obviously promote the growth of these. Right, so that's the first row done. Just need to space out, get some others done. And for this type of perennial onion, it's important, much like the normal onions, to have an area that's nicely free draining, not too heavy, but is going to benefit from being able to retain plenty of nutrients. So let's finish planting. So just a bit of an insight as to how I've set it out. I've done my 3 rows of 7 per row, if you like, of the more established pieces, and then within this final row of the more vegetative bulbs, what I'm doing is I'm putting 2 smaller pieces into each planting section, planting hole, which will then leave me with just the bulbils to plant, which I'll then do as their own separate row, and that's just going to allow me to sort of, I suppose, keep on top or keep a watch as to how each different type grows, develops and performs. So that's it, planting done. Ended up with my 4 rows of growing stock, if you like, and then I've done my 1 row of the bulbils, so that gives me 5 rows in total, 7 units per row, so 35 plants hopefully growing on for next year to give me a lovely good block of Egyptian walking onions. And although I said at the beginning that I had lost quite a few in 2024, actually you can see how quickly the numbers have bulked up just from the 3 initial plants in the year before. So yeah, planting done of Egyptian walking onions. Right, so that's it done. Planting of Egyptian walking onions, top onions, stick onions, whatever you want to call them. It is done. If you've got any questions, then please send the questions to me. I'll do my very best to answer them for you. Probably the hardest bit to answer is actually where you can source your own stock from. I got my plants initially from a UK company called Pennard Plants. They have very limited quantities available each year, and it is limited. There are sellers on eBay advertising for Egyptian walking onions. I would always be a bit skeptical of that, because I think quite a few of those are probably more likely sand leeks or Babington leek that they're selling, and not necessarily genetically correct Egyptian walking onions. So aside from that though, in terms of how to grow them, plant them, whatever, if you've got a question, then obviously send the questions to me and I'll give my best to answer them for you. If you've liked the video, then please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit that reminder button so you don't miss out on the future videos that I'm doing. And above all else, and I always say it, but just enjoy yourself, have fun, and perhaps give an Egyptian walking onion or a perennial walking type onion a go as something different, because they are really good and have that slight point of difference, particularly in reference to chives or spring onion. So till next time, bye for now.